evening and welcome to another MTV Community Forum. I'm your host Byron Campbell. Our co-host Chris Dial is not with us this evening. So Chris, where you are, good evening. We have a very interesting session lineup this evening. We have our guest, our special guest is in fact Daisy Hazard. She is the president, of course, of the Grenada Public Workers Union. So we look forward to an interesting conversation with her. Before we go there, though, I want to say a few things. Firstly, I want to talk about the Solidarity Month for Cuba. And we're going to see the statement up. And the theme for this Solidarity Month is Grateful Grenada Gives Back to Cuba. And let me say that, Cuba is in need right now. Let me just make a brief statement on this, that the Cuban people face daily hardship, power blackouts. They last 12 to 20 hours, shutting down fans, fridges, hospitals. Food rations don't last a month. Families queue hours for bread, chicken, or coconut. Pharmacies lack basic antibiotics. Insulin and blood pressure medicines, and inflation has wiped out salaries. A doctor earns under 20 US monthly. And what's responsible for this? We need to know that the US embargo on Cuba since 1962 has blocked fuel, shipments, medical equipment, spare parts, and international financing. Strangling the economy, internal mismanagement. Well, yet Cuba trained over 800 Grenadian, hundreds of doctors, let me say, built our international airport and deployed medical brigades to Africa, around the world. They supply hurricane relief with personnel and in the COVID zones worldwide. Ordinary Cubans, not officials, bear the brunt of this. Grenada knows solidarity. We have needed help before. Cuba answered. Now it's our turn to speak up, send aid, and push for dialogue, because regional suffering becomes regional instability. So every Grenadian have an opportunity to contribute. There are ongoing church collections. There are $1 a day for Cuba in the schools, and various parishes have in community workplaces. There's fundraising, mobilizing medical aid, food, energy, and other critical supplies. So this is a big deal. There's a lot happening in your community and elsewhere. There are dinners, there are various types of fundraising activities. So we want you to note what's happening and please support, make a contribution. It's our turn to show solidarity with the Cuban people, because they have been there for us. And we will continue to report on what's happening. It's a very important reason to give. I want to mention briefly, too, that the whole question of squatters have been in the news lately. We see them being evicted from Crown Lands in the south and other locations. But to what extent, I want to say, these type of evictions are consistent. We note, for example, there was the Port Highway where notices were given. Nothing happened. So we think there should be consistency with this policy. I also want to mention that the Eastern Caribbean, the ECCB governor, Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, he was talking recently and mentioned that the average growth in the Eastern Caribbean is about 3.3%. This year, next year, that's the projections. And what he was saying, this is only this type of growth could only fuel maintenance, nothing else. He said for real growth to take place, we will need to do an average about 7% annually for the next decade, actually. We will explore this issue with our guests upcoming to look at the whole question of labor worker point of view. We think it's an important subject. CARICOM leaders have been sending communication letters to President Trump on the assassination attempt on his life. And everything is wrong about this assassination, this type of violence, but the U.S., so we've seen their response, communicating to the president, but the U.S. assassination of Iran's entire leadership, or the violent invasion of Venezuela, or the killing of 100 persons and the kidnapping of its leader, it's okay. We've not heard any statements or condemnation from our regional leaders. We need consistency here, certainly. I want to mention briefly, too, that We noticed that in the parliament yesterday, there was a new tax, was tabled, legislation, and this is to impose a VAT on digital services. Let me explain this a little. It means that there will be a VAT, there's a 15% for these services charged to that. So things like your streaming platforms like Netflix and Spotify, or digital subscription for news or software or online courses will be subjected to these taxes, or cloud storage, iCloud or Dropbox, and you have some essential business tools, which is probably more relevant for a lot of us. That is like Zoom or Microsoft 365 or accounting software. All of these now will be subject to tax and cost us more. Part of the rationale the government came up with says, look, they have over $600 million in tax arrears, and they're trying to broaden the base without raising existing tax rates. Bottom line, these services will cost you an additional 15%. So note that. And finally, I want to say that the Prime Minister just returned from a trip to Africa. No detailed reports have been issued on the trip, which was stated as an economic development workshop. And this is great. Working visit, actually. We wait for details, but he did report on healthcare cooperation with Nigeria in particular, because I think on the previous visit an MOU was signed. But we need to note something here, that Nigeria's healthcare system is currently facing significant challenges, and we should know that. And this is characterized by low funding. They have a high rate of dilapidated infrastructure. They have a high immigration rate of medical professionals, same like us here, by the way. And this is leading, as reported, to a largely dysfunctional public health sector, healthcare sector, where 80% of facilities are deemed inadequate. So, we will be talking about this with our guests, with Ms. Hazard soon. So that's an important point I want to make here. So we will take a break here now. When we come back, we'll have, of course, with us Daisy Hazard, the president of the Public Workers Union. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
Laboratories, providing quality care and expertise. Fit for life and allied laboratories. See our in-house doctors and our pharmacies. Get expert care and quality tests. When it comes to your health, you deserve the best. Fit for life and allied laboratories. We're taking care of Grenada.
Every recipe tells a story. Every dish carries love. And every mother has a secret ingredient. This Mother's Day, it's your time to shine. Register now for your chance to showcase your talent, win amazing prizes, and celebrate the heart of every home. Mama's Pot will take place at the Monrouge Plainfield, Saturday, May 9th. Call or WhatsApp 405-5718 or email mtvmarketinggd@gmail.com. Register today. Limited spots available.
God bless your two ones. Wash me clothes and cook me food and
Welcome back, viewers, to MTV Community Forum. And of course, our guest this evening is Daisy Hazard. She is the president of the Grenada Public Workers Union. Tomorrow is Labor Day. It's a day of struggles and solidarity and sacrifice. But in Grenada, tonight, the big question is this: are workers truly better off, or are they just surviving in a rising cost economy? The government says that conditions have never been better. The unions say workers are still under pressure, low wages, contract insecurity, migration, and strain in critical sectors like health. So tonight we go straight to the heart of it with President of the Public Workers Union. Good evening, Daisy.
Good evening,
And
Byron,
welcome.
and thank you so much, and good evening to your viewers and listeners. Thank you for having me on your program again.
Pleasure. Tomorrow is Friday.
Friday, May 1st.
48 hours
Yes.
is May Day, Labor Day, an anniversary, another year where unions come together in solidarity to march, to have fun also. And this year it's happening in Carriacou. So tell us about what's the theme, what's the expectations, who's going, how is it being organized, what's happening here, Daisy?
You make me have to grab for my phone. I'll
Okay.
tell you the theme.
Okay.
So again, viewers and listeners, thank you for allowing me into your living rooms. And we know that this year, the Grenada Trades Union Council, all of the affiliate unions we are bringing May Day to Carriacou. That pronouncement was made in Victoria in 2025. And even as the pronouncement was made, the question was, how are we going to do it? And by the grace of God, in just a day and 48 hours,
48
we are
hours,
going to be in Carriacou. I must start out by saying thank you to all of the people in Carriacou and Pitty Martinique, P.S. Linwald Perrott and his staff, the SAO, Ms. Stanislaus, our shop steward, that's PWU shop steward, Gloria Fortune, and all the persons in Carriacou who has been working for the last several months, since the start of last year, to make May Day in Carriacou possible. So a lot of the brunt of the work done on the ground has been done in collaboration with various teams in Carriacou, including the Maroon Committee. And so we are looking forward to a cultural sort of a May Day in Carriacou that takes on and reflects the habits and the society. In addition to the May Day, the traditional march and speeches like that, we are going to have entertainment from entertainers in Carriacou, one famous string band group. And we are using, as far as is possible, all of the services and goods and so is coming from Carriacou, because the intention of bringing May Day to different parishes every year and to bringing it into Carriacou is to ensure that revenue is generated around the country every year Labor Day comes about. And of course we know Labor Day is a day where we are very militant, where we speak hard to the issues that drive home to our heart, the things that concern us and confront us. But it's also a day in Grenada and in the Caribbean when we can celebrate and we can relax and have fun. May Day is almost like a mini carnival, a clean one, because we enjoy industrial freedoms. We enjoy the sort of an industrial landscape in our country and in our region where workers are safe, where workers for the most part are free from the sort of harms and violence that so many workers in our world today still experience, still are jailed for, still are harmed for, still are killed for. So we enjoy these freedoms, and we ought not to take those freedoms for granted, because while we live in a zone of peace, quote unquote,
Okay. Yeah.
while we live in paradise, the freedoms and the benefits and the rights that we enjoy today, they didn't come by easily. They've been fought for, and we safeguard them year on year, day on day.
So broadly speaking, who's going? Transportation. What's that? The logistic like? Can I go? Who's invited?
Byron, we are all welcome to Carriacou. We can all jump onto the Osprey or catch a flight and go over to Carriacou. But if you are going to get onto the Tyrrell Bay, that's the boat that has been secured by the TUC for all affiliate unions. You have to be a union member, and you have to be also wearing your union T-shirt. That's how we can identify you, and that's how we can ensure that we give you a place on the boat. You must belong to the GTAU, to the PWU, to Seamen and Waterfront Workers Union, to Bank and General Workers
And they'll be
Union.
free for workers.
Free for
affiliated,
workers.
Yeah.
The GOT has made separate arrangements, although they will be participating under the TUC banner. But in terms of how their members get up to Carriacou, they have made separate and individual
Okay.
Arrangements.
Okay.
The boat leaves at 7 a.m.
Yeah.
So we are asking workers, get up
Okay.
with the crows,
Yeah.
with the fowls. Get up early, be out the road from, depending on where you live, St. Patrick, St. Andrew, at 5:30, and the buses are there. The buses have been sent, the routes have been announced. So we are expecting workers en masse. The numbers so far are really good.
And is it the policy of the TUC to shift the celebrations or the Labor Day celebrations from parish to parish,
Yes.
a different location every year?
Absolutely.
So Carriacou is getting its turn
Yes.
now. And that's a big deal, and that's
Yeah.
important, because very often we tend to forget the Sister Isle, that she don't exist, So I think this is recognition and kudos, yeah. I'm going to move on. Let's start where workers feel it the most in their pockets. The government has pointed to a proposed offer, because it was mentioned publicly, over a 3-year period of 4 and 5%, suggesting stability and responsibility on their part. But with inflation, rising food imports, and energy costs still relevant, is the real relief or the effectability to pay a pay cut in disguise? What's happening if we have inflation at averaging, according to the Caribbean, inflation is average at 4.4 to 6% post-COVID. Food import bills remain high, access across the OECS. So what is the union response to this? Is it seeing this as adequate? Is it an offer? Is this being negotiated? What exactly is happening here, Daisy?
So Byron, there is never a time that the offer from government
Yeah.
or the negotiated settlement, what unions finally accept and agree upon, ever really matches the true inflation number and the real picture that all of us as citizens confront in our daily lives.
Yeah.
What negotiations do is attempt to bridge the gap in some small measure. When we first went to the table with government, of course, government's offer was not 13%, but over negotiating for several weeks and months, because our real negotiations got underway on the table in January of this year, January 2026.
Yeah.
And so government's last offer to the union, and I think that was communicated on March 16, thereabouts, it was communicated in writing, because we met on the table with the GNT. We shifted our offer. We shifted our offer. We reduced our ask by 1%, and government sent back a response offering 13%, but prescriptive as to what the percentage would be for each year. 4% for 26, 27, and 28.
Yeah.
Now, the statistic that you just referred to, which is a statistic that is applicable to the Caribbean and to Grenada,
Yes.
posits inflation at 4.6. When we first met government at the table, government indicated that inflation for the year 2026 is less than 1%. And that in 2020, eventually that figure shifted to 1.1. And also indicated that by 2028, inflation in 2028 would be less in 2028 than it is in 2026. We as unions, we were already looking and examining the geopolitical space, because if you're a student of history, and if you're doing your research and your homework, you didn't need to be a fortune teller to know that our region and the world was going to become imperiled by wars and rumors of wars. Sometime in February, not February, I believe it was January, after the event in Venezuela, when we met with the GNT on the table, they introduced that their figures and what government can realistically provide for workers, that is impacted by geopolitical events and wars. And we looked at the team and we asked, what are you talking about? You have only just learned this in January, after Mr. Maduro was airlifted out of his country? And so the offer by government is by no means an offer that can realistically meet the brunt or the impact that we are facing out there. All workers are paying more in NIS this year. Many workers, the majority of public servants are paying 3.5 into a pension fund.
But here's the thing, Daisy.
Yes.
Our economy is not growing that high. As we know, the average here is 3.3%. So where is the government going to get the additional money you're talking about? It is true what you're saying, that in fact the IMF has clearly indicated that as a result of the war, the geopolitical matter, that the world, including Grenada, could be heading into recession.
Absolutely.
And that's inflation. But the other side of it, and that isn't the union need to be balanced here, that looking at where the economy is.
Absolutely.
So 13% seemed adequate, and the government would have been responsible, I'm assuming, in making such a proposal.
Okay, so Byron, you're asking about responsibility and accountability.
Yeah.
And the reality is that unions have not asked, have not advocated for on the table what the real inflationary figures look like.
Yeah.
We have not asked for that. And that is in a deliberate attempt early on to strike a balance to ensure that what we ask for is not something that government cannot afford or ought not to be able to afford. But if you remember, 1 year ago, we have been asking this government, on May Day to be exact, and other times, to be prudent with spending, to be careful with their fiscal responsibility. Have we seen that? Have we seen a government?
Well, I'm asking, have you seen that? Have you seen that? Have you seen that? That's the question.
I leave that to the jury.
You leave
Because
it to the
depending
jury.
on who you ask,
But but what if the 13% is what is a fair number then? And
well,
how do you
that-
justify it by risking? Are you
Right.
justified by risking layoff and probably fiscal strain? Because there's consequences to any to what. And let me elaborate this. Let me say this too. That 60% of recurrent revenue is going to salaries. You know, and those kind of
So
pay.
allow-
The World Bank is saying, look, that amount should never be more than 40%. If you're going to 6%, you're in trouble. So clearly, we're not going in the right direction. And you're suggesting that it should be more than what it is presently. This is what the union is
perhaps
suggesting.
you will allow me the opportunity to answer.
Sure,
Right.
definitely.
So as I've
yeah,
said
okay.
before, unions are not asking for what the real figures look like. We have accepted for the period 2023 to 25, 13%. And if you go back to the 2 periods before that, this is where salaries have been stagnated at. If you go back to those periods before, this is where salaries have been stagnated at. Now, while our salaries have been stagnated at 13%, we see our policymakers in the course of less than 3 years, and don't tell me, don't say, because we have to say it, because Byron, the public
Yeah,
ought to know, no, allow me to answer, please.
Yeah,
the
sure,
public
yeah,
ought to
okay.
know that the manner in which a government minister should get a pay increase is when public servants receive a pay increase and the percentage increases that is negotiated for public servants. So if the politician can sit down and decide that his salary is not adequate, and 4 times within a period of 3 to 4 years, he can just sit down, no consultation, no negotiations, leaving out the negotiations process, which is built into how we pay our politicians. How then do you ask me to say that Grenada can't afford pay
But this may
increases
be
for its
wrong.
public
This may be
servants?
wrong, and we should criticize it. It happened.
But it doesn't seem
But
like
we
we
can't
want to.
use this as a justification.
We are not using it
What
as
are
a
you using it
justification.
as?
So allow me to answer the second part of the
Sure,
question.
sure,
When we
by all
meet with
means.
government at the table, we
Yeah.
do not only negotiate for percentage increases.
Yeah.
We negotiate also for benefits, for fringe benefits, which is entailed within a package called a CBA. So we are not finished negotiating. Whether our union will settle for 13% or not, the jury is out on that. But we are not finished negotiating because the entire package for a period is not just the mere paltry percentage increase. It's not just that. So when we sit at the table before government, how we come to a conclusion on what percentage we will accept and be satisfied with is vis-a-vis what package of benefits we are able to secure with the same government.
Yeah, because
so there's
well,
2 sets of negotiations that happen simultaneously
Okay.
to come to one conclusion. It's not just percentage increases. So what we accept for percentage increases has to do with what is offered and what is negotiated also for benefits. And our union is determined that we will put benefits on the table for our members this year. Because Byron, let me tell you something. We have members who work with their hands in the fields. We have members who work in the abattoir. And when you see them going to market with the meat, they're not even wearing a pair of overalls. Should we say that we should not have the civility and the respect for our workers who are laboring with their hands to give them some clothing, to give them some protective gear? Is our country too poor to do that?
But don't you also have a responsibility to the taxpayers?
I am
that are
asking
burdened with
you,
also, because
is our
that's where the money
country
is coming
too
from.
poor to ensure
Yeah.
that our meat handlers have a pair of gloves,
I-
that they have some protective clothing? This is what my union is attempting to do in 2026. And what we're asking for, allow the union the respect and the dignity to negotiate with government at the table, because the union is not negotiating with itself, it's negotiating with the government through the apparatus of the government's negotiating team. We are not there alone. We are at the table, we are amicable, we are respectful, we are negotiating in good faith. The process has continued very deliberately, very strategically, but both parties, union nor government, is completed. So we cannot walk off the table and sign because we are not finished. And we cannot say to you tonight or today that we are settling for 13%. It might
What
be.
do you think is a fair offer, though?
It's a reasonable offer
Okay.
in terms of the entire
Fine.
situation that we're facing.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm going to move on here.
But it's not just
Yeah.
about 13%.
Okay,
So
there-
let us
there are
narrow the
other
argument down
benefits.
to
Yeah.
13%.
Yeah.
Salary increases for workers is not just about a mere figure. And I want to remind the public again that there are some workers, when we're finished at the table with 13%, their take-home pay will rise by about $40 or $50 or $60. Some of our workers. We're not talking about fortunes here. We're not talking about salaries that's going above the sky. We're talking about basic salaries, minimum wage earners, because my union represents minimum wage earners, as well as we represent doctors and nurses and lawyers and accountants.
Okay,
Yes.
I want to move on. Here's the thing. A big issue for the union and Public Workers Union has been the regularization of workers. The government have made it big in a bold statement and as a major accomplishment, as a transformative matter that over 1,200 workers have been regularized. That's significant. But we still hear complaints from your union, about contract workers without security benefits or pension. Is this progress, public relations?
It's not a complaint.
Yeah.
Because when government comes
Yeah.
to say that they have regularized 1,200 so workers as a fact,
Yeah.
what the union does is disaggregate that fact that government has, that factoid that government has placed into the public space to say what the reality is. It's not a complaint, it's what the reality is.
So what
and
is
the
the
reality is that if you do a search, how many nurses, the most critical sector that has been identified by this administration, by the public, by what is happening in Grenada at this time, the move to statutorization, the move to building a new hospital, how many of our nurses have been regularized, have received instruments of proper appointment in the last 3 to 4 years? How many? What's the answer? Do you know, Byron? You read out a number of statistics here tonight.
1,200, that's a lot
That's
of
not
workers.
nurses.
No, that's not nurses.
You read out a lot of statistics. How many? Do we know? Have we heard from government that we have regularized X amount of workers? We've heard about other categories of workers. We've received the definitive and disaggregated figure for one category of workers. And then we're told, outside of that 400 plus workers, the other parts of the public sector, police, which is now staffed by rookies for the most part.
Why do you call them rookies? No.
Well, they are rookies if they're not experienced. They are rookies
they
if they're
appointed
new.
55 new. I mean,
That's
they've been
that's a rookie
trained, they have
crop.
to start.
But that's a rookie
So they're
crop.
rookies.
So then why are you
fine, okay.
asking me why am I saying rookie?
So they've started off. It's a positive thing, though.
We're not saying it's
Okay.
not positive. We're
Right.
simply identifying the facts.
Yeah.
So where are the numbers disaggregated for policemen?
Yeah.
Where are the numbers disaggregated for prisons?
Yeah.
Where are the numbers disaggregated
Yeah.
for nurses,
Yeah.
for doctors, for mainstream public servants? And I'm saying again, the most critical sector in our nation that is short-staffed right now is our healthcare. No healthcare practitioner, no doctor, no nurse, not even a maid, Byron, can walk into the hospital and begin to clean without prior training. What's been the training for these people? How have we regularized them? How many of these people have received instruments of appointment regularized by the public service? What's the numbers?
Okay, so let me raise something here, Daisy. Yesterday, I ended up in the emergency department due to an aunt. This might be interesting. An aunt got me in the emergency department, and I was there for 4 hours, you know,
Right.
because it got in. I was on the farm, and it got into my ear. The one they call the flammer, you know, the bigger red one.
Yeah,
one
that
of
got
those
into your
got
ear.
in my- So I had the opportunity yesterday to visit the emergency. I was there for 4 hours, and I must compliment highly the staff there for, at all aspects of it, the registration, the procedures, the testing done. I even had an ECG, you know, I mean, it was for an aunt in my ear. So it was thorough and complete, I thought. The equipment, the supplies were all adequate. But interestingly, I was there for 4 hours, and I listened and spoke to other patients there, and they complained about the length of time. Like some were there for 7 hours, I was there for 4 hours, and others complained a lengthy time. And the question is, why is it necessary to spend this length of time? And I asked the question, and I was told, all honesty, that there was a staffing issue, that there were inadequate staff in there to deal with the inflow of patients. So my question is this tying into the point that you're making about the staffing situation?
But absolutely it is,
Excellent work to
Byron.
people there, but they complained of overworked and not. There were 2 doctors serving there at the time, and they indicated that there were going to be one later in the night there, and this they felt was inadequate. So definitely there's a staffing issue at the hospital that I experienced yesterday.
So then you're not asking me a question.
No. So the issue is, do you have any numbers? How many workers are still in limbo? Why hasn't you worked out with the government a timeline, or forced a clear timeline? What has the union done concretely to address this issue? Because it remains outstanding. You're
so-
responsible because you're representing those workers.
So on the one hand, Byron,
Yeah.
you've attempted here tonight to tie the hands of the union where it's convenient. And on the other hand, you've shifted
I'm just asking some
allow me to
questions.
answer.
Yes.
You've shifted responsibility
Yeah.
from the policymaker, from
Yeah.
the employer,
Yeah.
to the union. And
So
you
you
want,
have a
and you want to
responsibility.
know what unions have done.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
what we've done is this. We've asked for the numbers. What we've done is this. We've asked for the matrix. What we've done is to ask the government, the employer, who are your employees? How are they employed? Who's on contract? Who has no letter?
Yeah.
Government has not been able to provide this response up to date. The question now I might want to ask you, since the question you asked the union, what do you suggest unions do to get that number from government? Because we've been asking.
You've been
We've been
asking.
meeting at the table.
Yeah.
We've been meeting with the hospital statutorization
Yeah.
team. We've been asking of DPA. Government has indicated that by October of this year, another timeline, that there will be statutorization of all healthcare workers at our hospital plants. To date, government has indicated that they just don't know who their staff are.
But what has the union done to force the issue? That's the point.
Byron,
So
would you like
whatever
to-
you've done is
Right.
ineffective because
So-
it hasn't been done. It's not done.
So again, you're
Yeah.
attempting
Yeah.
to deflect and to shift onto the union. So my question to you
Yeah.
is, if we've been writing,
Yeah.
if we've been asking,
Yeah.
you see what unions do?
Yeah.
We meet at the table.
Okay.
We negotiate and we attempt to relate to the employer
Yeah.
in good faith at the table. That's the science that we work with. The science that we work with comes from the ILO, it comes from Public Services International, it comes from all those bodies, Cipriani College. So what we do is we attempt to negotiate, we attempt to have conversations, to have social dialogue with government in good faith. Our dialogue with government, and we've been meeting with the hospital statutorization team, we have written tons of letters to government to find out what are the numbers. We've been meeting with DPA. So far, government has said they don't know. They don't have the numbers. What do you suggest this union leader do? Do you suggest, I'm asking you because
Yeah.
you're asking what we've done to
I'm
force
answer- I'm
government.
answering the question.
Are you
Yeah.
suggesting?
I'll answer the question.
Are you
Yes,
suggesting,
yes,
Mr.
yes,
Campbell?
yes.
Because if the attempts,
Yeah.
and we can provide that information to the
Yeah.
public, to ask government for this number, and
Yeah.
government is saying, we are working on it.
Let me
no,
answer
no,
that.
I'm not finished.
Okay,
we are
fine.
working on it.
Okay.
Are you suggesting that I should call a strike at the General Hospital?
Please.
Are you because you're asking me how to force
Let-
government,
so-
and you very well know what unions recourse to
Yeah.
when they attempt to dialogue and to have conversation, which is what we do,
Let
does
me-
not work.
let me
And so the
remind-
union would be irresponsible to attempt to force government.
Yeah.
What we are doing is engaging in social dialogue,
Right.
and we are hoping that the employer gets its figures together
Yeah.
and presents it to the
Let me
union.
remind you, Daisy.
That's the responsible
yes,
thing
I know.
that I can do and my
But
union
let
can
me
do
remind you
in
something.
this context.
Let me remind
Yes.
you something. The last election, not long ago, the unions, on the question of pension, changed the government, used their vote, and that's a fact, the data is clear on this, to change the government on a matter, a critical matter, to get action, and you got action.
Byron,
you got
let me-
result.
let me-
Would you consider such an action on the issue of regularization in the upcoming
No,
election?
at this point in
Yeah,
time,
uh-huh.
objectively,
Yeah.
logically,
Yeah.
we have a government that has
Yeah.
been in office
Yeah.
from 2022.
Yeah.
We have a government that inherited, and those are the facts.
Yeah.
This government inherited a public sector that was broken,
Yeah.
where the majority of your public servants were not hired properly.
Yeah.
That's an inherited situation, albeit the NDC as an administration was in office 2008 to
Yeah.
13.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
a 5-year term enough
Yeah.
for any one administration to fix a chronic problem? No, I don't believe that reasonably. So our union, we're not going to attempt to break the back of government. I certainly will not be attempting to change, effect a political change in our country over a situation.
This issue is not sufficient.
No,
It's
it's
not
not,
big enough.
because the reality is that while the union may say what government is putting out into the public space as facts is not always true to the facts, not always true to the data.
Okay.
We have to give this administration for credit for attempting to make those changes, for attempting to bring up salaries, for attempting to give regularization after a form, because it's not meaningful regularization, it's not really regularization where people do not receive letters of appointment from the PSC. But
Bottom
can
line.
government be commended
Yeah.
for strategically looking
Yeah.
at this thing
Yeah.
and attempting to fix it? Yes. One of the things that we do know has happened is that all of the nurses who were formerly under Grenkeys as an agency, not even employed by the ministry, they have all been moved over to the
Yeah.
ministry.
Yeah.
And so we've been giving the HSCT that respect, the DPA that respect, the Ministry of Health that respect to get the figures to us.
Yeah.
If we don't get the figures and the data by a certain
right.
time, then we can move on and act. But right now, it's not going to be
Exactly.
reasonable.
Bottom line, you're unsuccessful so far, and if you've been evaluated
Yes.
on that basis, it's a failure because you've not been
Well,
able
if
to
there is a
achieve.
failure, then the failure is on the part of government, Byron, because that is their employees. And if this administration is saying in 2026 they
Okay.
do not know who they employ
You-
in the Ministry of Health and Hospital Services, that's not
So
a
you
failure
cannot
on
take
the part of the,
responsibility.
but you cannot ask the union to take responsibility
Because
for the
you're
employer's
representing
work.
those workers and
Byron,
they're
we
teachers
do not,
available to
we
you.
do
Yeah.
not employ
Yeah.
the workers. We know who our workers are.
Yeah.
We have our
Okay.
number and data
Yeah.
and statistics.
Yeah.
You have asked me what government has provided. I've said to you government has provided nothing. You cannot then say the union has failed because the employer don't know who they employ.
Okay, I won't say that. That's fine.
That's
fine.
nonsensical,
Okay, that's
Mr.
fine.
Campbell.
That's fine. We're going to move on, Daisy. We are losing nurses and health workers to the UK, US, Canada. Now there's discussion about bringing in workers from countries like Nigeria. Is this a solution or a sign that Grenada is failing to retain its own talent?
Well,
What's happening
Mr.
here?
Campbell, let's go
You can
back
call me
again,
Byron, yeah, that's fine.
Byron, because it goes back to the
Okay.
question of regularization.
Yeah, right.
It goes back to the question of what is the public policy? Where we have Prime Minister announcing and indicating as a policy directive to our nation that we need to retain our nurses. We need to retain our healthcare staff. We have a critical problem in our healthcare. Have we seen strategically government retaining our nurses? Our nurses are still frittering away. Our doctors are still getting up to leave because they have not been regularized. So the question is, while that has been identified since 2023 as a policy initiative, while we're regularizing, shouldn't these professionals have been the first batch that strategically, as a policy directive, that government should have done? And they've not done it. The question is, why not? That's the question you have to be asking. If you have a shortage of nurses and doctors, and you've identified it, but you've not sought to retain them, nurses and doctors were given, I think, $500, $1,000. It was not salary. At the end of the day, it made them disgruntled. The other workers alongside became disgruntled because it's not salary. You still can't bring it to the bank. You still can't get a mortgage with it. You still can't enact a life with it. And we still have our healthcare workers facing this burden today. So the question is, why wasn't that policy decision enacted in attempting to retain these people properly, to regularize them properly long before now? Why are we seeing other persons being regularized in batches where they can take up a job without 1 day of training and not kill anybody, not harm anyone? Because a nurse or a doctor cannot walk into the hospital untrained. They can't suture, they can't stitch, they can't give an injection, they can't put up a drip line without training. They must be trained, and it takes years to train a nurse. So let's get to Nigeria and Ghana. Our nurses are not so happy that the Ghanaian counterparts and Nigerian counterparts are going to come to Grenada, enjoy better lives than them. enjoy better housing than them, enjoy better salaries than them in Grenada, because this is what happens when we have counterparts from abroad. We take great care of them. And our nurses are here, can't afford a house, can't afford some land, because the bank won't give it to them. So the question is, it is almost as a gift to us, because we need these workers, we need these Nigerians and Ghanaians, but when you look at the healthcare system in those countries, when you look at the data that comes out of there, when you look at what is being said about the Nigerian healthcare system, do we really expect that there is going to be that difference in Grenada? And then who's going to acculturate these nurses into our system? Who's going to do it? Our tired nurses? Where is our medical school? How many nurses have we agreed to train? Not just for Grenada, but for the export markets as well.
We'll continue the conversation when we get back.
What's our strategic plan?
We have to take a break here to pay the bills. Viewers, we'll be right back.
Hello, I'm leaving the house right now. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Life gets hectic. That's why I registered for myaccount.grenleg.com and chose paperless billing. It was simple. I went to the site and clicked sign up. I then tapped find my new account number, typed in my old number without the zeros at the front, and got my new account number instantly. The new account number is also in the app under the Balances tab or at the top of any recent Grenleg bill. I entered my new account number and the total amount due on my most recent bill, then filled out the profile information and subscription sections. They sent me an email to create a password and sign in. And finally, I signed up for paperless billing, and now everything I need is in one place. Myaccounts.grenleg.com and paperless billing have really brought me peace of mind.
Clean? At Allied Laboratories, we offer indoor air quality testing for commercial and residential spaces. Our rapid test results provide precise ratings of common air contaminants and will recommend the best actions to eliminate them effectively. Why do an indoor air quality test? Protect immunocompromised occupants, detection of mold and bacteria, identify volatile organic compounds, identify particulate matter, identify harmful pollutants that may otherwise go undetected, enhances safety and comfort, breathe easier and live healthier. Allied Laboratories, bringing quality laboratory services directly to you.
Every recipe tells a story. Every dish carries love. And every mother has a secret ingredient. This Mother's Day, it's your time to shine. Register now for your chance to showcase your talent, win amazing prizes, and celebrate the heart of every home. Mama's Pot will take place at the Monrouge Plainfield, Saturday, May 9th. Call or WhatsApp 405-5718 or email mtvmarketinggd@gmail.com. Register today. Limited spots available.
God bless your two ones. Wash me clothes and cook me food and
Well, welcome back, viewers. We're here this evening, MTV coming to forum with Daisy Hazard. Of course, she's the president of the Public Workers Union here in Grenada, of course, and it's Labor Day on Friday. Celebration, recognition of workers, solidarity, etc. Let me challenge you here, Daisy. Government often argues that wage increases must be tied to productivity. Are unions doing enough to push productivity, accountability, and performance in the public service?
Byron, the factors of production rest with the employer. The managerial and administrative structure of any company, any organization, rests with the employer. And so the main role of a union is not productivity. I don't choose for government who its administrators are. Unions don't get to make those decisions. In fact, if unions got to make these decisions, you would see a lot of difference in terms of how government chooses its managerial structure.
Okay, so the question
And
is,
yes.
is productivity from your
Absolutely,
perspective,
I've said it.
is it
I've said it.
improving? Is it improving? That's the question. Fast enough? Is it improving? That's the question.
Byron, the members that I represent, the PW represents, we are the productive sector of the public service. We are the ones who write the policies. We are the ones who write the projects if you give us a chance to.
Yeah.
We are the ones who bring the millions of dollars to Grenada
Yeah.
in long-term projects if you give
Yeah.
us a chance to. We are the one who goes out to collect the taxes. The new taxes that government has announced, we are the ones who are going to be monitoring and collecting those. So the members that I represent, to a man, we are the productive sector. We account, and I've said it before, on the books, all of the revenue that government generates and collects and accounts for outside of taxes, it is my members who do it. When you go to Boulogne, when you go to Limlair, when you go up to Maribor, when you go to the abattoir, and you see people working there, persons on Maribor, spraying pesticides with no protective gear, and the evidence is there that they've been dying out because we have not protected them as a people, as a society, as an employer. These are the people who are earning the revenues that Grenada can boast about. Can productivity increase? Absolutely. Can public servants do better? Absolutely. But public servants don't come from the PWU. Public servants come from the communities, come from the homes, comes from the schools. And if you listen to the employers, they will tell you that the products that they get to service their companies, their firms, their businesses, leaves a lot to be desired. It stands to reason that that's also what's servicing the public sector. So if we want to talk about productivity, we can't be asking the union alone about productivity. We have to be asking the entire society and the employer. But as a union leader, for me, productivity is an accountability, professionalism. That's my watchwords to our workers. If you come to the union with a complaint, the first thing we ask you, how are you as a worker? When we go to the employer, when we go to your permanent secretary or your supervisor to say you've come with this complaint, what will they say about you as a worker? How do you produce? How do you account for yourself? And so absolutely, to every public servant who is out there listening, we ask, the union continues to ask for productivity. And that is why we have done sessions between the later part of last year and this year, reminding workers, inculcating them, educating them about the SRNO, about the staff orders, about the labor code. What are their rights alongside? We have done that.
So the union has a responsibility.
Yes, we have taken on that responsibility.
To seek
yes.
higher productivity.
Yes, absolutely.
Because that will be a justification for higher wages.
Yes, it is.
It has to come from somewhere.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I want to move on here. And the question.
But I want to sink in.
Please.
That
yes.
the factors of production lie with the employer.
Yeah.
So when you see inexperienced and incompetent people with not one day of experience in the public sector, parachuted into the highest offices of the public sector, and you talk about productivity, ask government about that, because no person can go into the public service and be able to effectively manage any office, any unit, any department, any ministry in the public sector without the benefit of experience.
But your union is representing management also.
Absolutely. I'm saying to you, Mr. Campbell, that in the public sector, there is a pathway to how persons should get promoted. Part of that is merit. Part of that, and merit comes with experience, it comes with your qualifications and all of that. What we've seen in the last number of years, the last 3 to 4 years, is that there is a high level, a large volume of persons who have been brought into the public sector, lifted out of nowhere, came into the public sector, earning higher salaries than persons who have been laboring.
Are these contracted workers or part of the...
I am not certain how they are employed, sir.
They're not part of your union?
But how would the union know what their appointment letters look like? We are not the employer. But what we do know is that they are not public servants who have come up the train. They don't know the service. They don't understand how to enact government policies. They don't know the staff orders. They don't know the intricacies.
What numbers are we looking at?
We are looking at quite a large number of people. And if you ask public servants, they will tell you that they call them 10-5. So when a worker is looking at, and this is a real case.
10-5, what's that? Yeah.
Those persons who come into the service and their salaries just begin at $10,500.
Seriously?
Quite a lot of them. And when you look,
That's a fact.
Oh, it's absolutely a fact. That's what the workers call them, 10-5. So when you look at a worker sending a letter to the union saying, I am a public servant of 18 years. I've worked in government offices, in administration, in registry departments, and the registry department is one of the most critical functions in a government ministry. And the person who now supervises me was an Imani. And that person has just been lifted and given a position, parachuted. We see this from the Parliament to Ministry of Finance, all of our ministries. I can't complain about a person receiving a job, but the question is, where is your priority list? Does the Public Service Commission have that? When there is a gap to be filled, a role or a position to be filled, how is that filled? Does the Public Service Commission pull out a list? Does the DPA pull out a list? Does the Cabinet pull out a list? And this list says, this is who we have. This is their training, their qualification, their experience. And so therefore, this person or this number employee can be placed here. Yeah. That is not happening. So we have a service where merit, where there is supposed to be pathways as to how a person can be placed into managerial positions. That has not been honored.
Is the union able, on this issue, during your discussions or negotiations or meeting with the government, can you raise these matters as concerns of the union? Have you done this?
Byron, at this table tonight, there should have been someone from the government side giving accountability and accounting for themselves, answering the hard questions that you're posing to the union. But every time I come here to answer your hard questions, there's no one from government.
We get only
we see government on these little programs. We see them when they're talking and that sort of a thing. But we do not see government taking the accountability and responsibility to ask the hard questions. In fact, let me tell you an experience the union had recently. We were at my union building, our union building, the PWU. We were at a stakeholder consultation for hospital statutorization. And as president, I rightfully asked some questions, real questions, not questions to real questions, and the Minister for Health was there. And the gentleman got up, very angry, and gave a political speech. And everybody to a man after in the room asked, does the minister understand that he was at a consultation? And consultation means that you want to hear from your stakeholders what their perspectives are, what their point of view is. But we seem to have administrators and policymakers, let me leave out administrators, policymakers who don't want to ask hard questions and be accountable to our nation.
Okay. So I want to go to the point you just raised there. The Ministry of Health, especially the General Hospital, we are seeing staff shortages as we talk about migration and the talk of statutorization or privatization, however you want to look at it.
It's not
Let me ask you directly, is this reform or is this the slow privatization of the public health care? How is it seen?
I cannot give account for government's thoughts and processes and what they intend to do. What I can say is this. From the year 1996, we've had government entities become statutorized. Now, a statutorized body is not private sector. It's what you call semi-autonomous. So it's still under the authority of government because there is a line ministry, but it runs and functions with a board, so it's able to, in a lot of ways, function almost as a private sector company, so that there's more efficiencies. You can streamline things, you can get results and productivity and that sort. So that is why our union has said, we are not against statutorization. That is why we've been attending those meetings. In fact, that is why we wrote to government several times to ask to be heard at the table as regards statutorization. We've been meeting with a team that government has sent, and we've been asking the questions. We've been making suggestions, we've been giving ideas. Very recently, I believe it was the month of March, and it's ongoing. The hospital statutorization team has been meeting with our members. That's a suggestion that came from our union. We said meet with workers, reassure them, calm their fears and anxiety. We've also implored upon the statutorization team that there needs to be a change manager. Because if you're moving over from public sector, which has always been, to semi-autonomous or statutorization, it's a huge change, and that change has to be managed. So you need a change manager. You need a CEO, because you can't wait until you have statutorized to bring on board your management team and staff. That has to be identified. And so when we meet with the hospital statutorization team, not only do we ask for the numbers and the names and who the workers are and what their regularization status is, but we also give good advice to the HSTT. I can also tell you that governments in its strategic thinking and planning did not realize and had not accounted for the home that our seniors go to. And we had to say to government, to the team, this is also a hospital that functions under the Ministry of Health. What are you going to do about them?
So you're not resisting
We are not
standardization.
resisting at
You
all.
agree that it could improve
It
efficiency.
can improve, and
So-
yes,
so
and we
you're
deserve
on board
good
with-
health care.
Right. So as you talk about health care,
And statutorization can
Project
do that.
Polaris, several hundred million US dollars. Don't recall, I didn't recall seeing you looking at a television at the opening. Were you
I was
invited?
there.
You were there. So
Yes.
you support this initiative, you're behind it, the union is behind it, you think it's a worthy investment and it's a direction Grenada should be going into? And it's going to solve all of our health. We're going to be the most advanced health care system, whatever, in the Caribbean, in Eastern Caribbean certainly. So you support this transformative agenda item?
I want to speak about the things that I'm convicted about. I want to speak about the things that I have information and knowledge about.
Right.
I attended the launch of Project Polaris, and I also, before I left there, sought out Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell, I believe for the first time as President of the Union, to say to him, Sir, Prime Minister, I want to congratulate you. Because to have a vision for a better healthcare system, to have a vision for a state-of-the-art hospital, that's something that Grenada can aspire to.
Right.
As to how it's coming about, as to where it's coming about, as to the information and knowledge that we have, I have to take a drink of water
Yeah. Okay.
and sort of mind my business, because although my members would be affected because they
Yeah.
are going to be working there,
Yeah.
and we have to wonder, is the hospital placed in the right location? We have buildings across Grenada, right here in St. George's, across our country, that government owns, that workers should be occupying, and they cannot because the buildings are sick.
Interesting, yes. So,
And our
government-
workers are sick.
Government is spending a lot of money on
Renting
rental
properties,
facilities.
yes.
Which, what about the general housing of your workers? Is it
Our wo-
adequate?
they are displaced, and even now, if
Call
you
it
go to the
displaced.
complex, the building is still sick. If you look at the roof, ceiling tiles are missing. So as I've said before, we painted the building, we put the cart before the horse. But the
Okay.
real infrastructure that should safeguard and protect workers and the public, that's not in place. Our public sector is sick. So when you talk about morale in the public sector, it is at an all-time low.
You just said our public sector is sick. That's a
Yes,
significant
the yeah,
statement.
but
If you see this press across the newspapers tomorrow on the news,
Byron,
what are you going to say?
the public sector and public workers are sick because we are working in sick buildings. The information, the science tells you that a worker who is exposed to respiratory conditions that are not good, that's the worst kind of environment that anyone can be exposed to because it causes lung cancer, it causes respiratory illnesses. That's not the union saying so. That's the World Health Organization. That's the ILO. That's the statistics. If you ask our CMO here, our Chief Medical Officer, he will have to tell you that. So if our workers are laboring in conditions that make them sick, and they have to cycle in and out of the job, when you go to Magistracy in Grenville and you look at the walls, it's crawling with mold. The building is sick. You look at finance,
Yeah.
everybody's down south, and there's still complaints. So the service is displaced, and workers are being made sick with sick buildings. That's a fact. It's not the union saying so. It's also the experience of the public, because we know that our ministries have been displaced because buildings are sick.
I have a question for you here. The Governor, Antoine, Governor of the Central Bank, he says we can double the economy. We can't double the economy with a falling population and flat productivity. Public officers are aging, youths are migrating. Is the Public Workers Union ready to support skilled immigration to keep the public service running, or retaining?
You know,
Yeah.
Mr. Campbell, and I want to call you Mr. Campbell here, historically and traditionally, Grenadian workers and Grenadian citizens are welcomed abroad
Yeah.
because we have good work ethic.
Yeah.
We're respectful people.
Yeah.
We go above and beyond.
Yeah.
If we're sitting here in Grenada today and we are contemplating importing labor rather than attempting to understand from a societal a point of view, a social point of view, and a point of view that our social anthropologists can help us to understand. If we're not attempting to do that, what we're saying is that we are giving up on our society. What we're saying is that we are giving up on our children, on our youth. Our children are acculturized differently to how we were. Our homes, our family structure, communities are changed. Our school system should be different as well. You have children who are sitting on gadgets at home, but when they go to school, it's still talk and chalk. You still have educators who don't know how to use AI, who have no dexterity with digital platforms and digital devices, and they're educating our children. That is not to impugn anything, and I'm using the word impugn. It's a word that has been entered into our consciousness. That's not to impugn anything on anybody, because we are not native to digital internet technologies and digital devices. We are still on the learning curve. But the question is, do we have a responsibility as a society, as a country, to understand the root of the problem and fix it? Or are we going to take the lazy and convenient route out, or perhaps the easy route out, to just bring people in? Why should we want to do that in Grenada? What are we doing to encourage young women, young families to have more children? When China wanted no more children, or wanted to control its population, there was a one-child policy. When China wanted to grow its population, they lifted that policy. So countries take strategic, concerted, definitive actions to grow their population. We can't imagine that we are going to grow.
She has introduced for every child born, setting up an account with several $100 billion.
So I must
First
say,
investment,
yes.
you know?
So I must say, at the level of the tripartite arrangement, which I'm a part of, labor, that is labor, government, and private sector. The amount of time that a woman can stay home with her baby, that is going to move. Many also get paternity leave, because we need to encourage women to have babies. Is that enough? Maybe not, but it's a step. So how do we look at the problem that we have as a society and attempt to fix it? How do we upskill our young men who are sitting on the blocks? Do they not want work? They do. Can they work? They can.
I think the youth unemployment now is 26%, which is pretty high.
But remember, we heard in our parliament some fantastical statistics that said that we don't really have a problem in Grenada with unemployment, and the last time unemployment was so low was in slavery, which is not an analogy. But the question is, are we going to put out statistics out there that are not reflective of the real truth? Are we going to confront the problem? Are we going to tackle it? Business owners are crying out. I meet the public sector all the time, and they say to me, Ms. Hazard, we love your representation of workers, but we also want to see productivity. We have a problem. And that is one of the reasons why, as a union, we had a training, a workshop on the labor code, focusing what are your responsibilities when you go out to work as a worker. What do you do? What is expected of you? So we need to do more of that.
I see you mentioned the question of AI a while ago, and it struck me that artificial intelligence is already reshaping jobs globally, and even in small states. Is Grenada prepared for a future where some public roles could disappear or be transformed?
So let me tell you what the experts say. And I was part of the team, the CARICOM team, that crafted the roadmap for digital skills in the Caribbean. What do we see? You use the word reshaping. The jobs and the people who will be challenged in their jobs are the persons who do not know AI. Because your AI is not going to necessarily take away your job. What it can do is make it easier, make it faster, make it more efficient, more productive. So do workers have a responsibility? Do employers have a responsibility? Do unions have a responsibility to ensure that we all bend the curve together so that we are not losing our jobs? To AI, we have a responsibility.
A manager may no longer need a personal assistant.
A manager will always need a personal assistant.
He use AI. Or she will use AI to do that.
I'm a
absolutely.
Manager, and I use AI. And AI makes the work easier, but it doesn't take it away. It does not take it away.
What is the union to do? But is the union doing anything right now to prepare workers for that shift? Because it will happen. Yes.
What we have done in our CBA that's yet to be signed, we've not concluded with GMTA, we have talked about upskilling. That categories of workers must be able to take advantage of benefits that government is going to provide to retrain. You look at, within the public sector, persons can get leave for master's degrees, for PhDs, for bachelors, but we want to encourage that cadre of workers that never seem to want to upskill. If you start out as a maid, you don't have to remain there. If you start out as a clerk typist, you don't have to remain there. If you start out as a groundsman or as the person at Maribor who's doing the cutlassing, you don't have to remain there. What can you do? What little short course can you take advantage of to upskill and retrain yourself? And so part of our efforts with the GNT at the table is to bring benefits to these workers. That's why we're still at the table.
That's fine. Government claim, here's the thing. Government says this is the best period ever for workers in Grenada. Do you agree, or is it simply not the lived reality of your members? What is that?
Mr. Campbell.
Ever. Best period ever for workers in Grenada. And I quote them. That's and this is what's going to be said on Friday.
That's fine. That's wonderful.
So is that a fact?
The Minister for Labor, how can that be a
fact?
fact? How can that be a fact? What do you juxtapose that against? When we look at our Employment Act, when did the Employment Act and the Grenada Labor Code come into fruition? That is a body of laws that enables rights for workers, any worker, whether you're unionized or you're not. That's a landmark. That is what sets the tone for industrial relations in our country today. So government has a right to say that this, if I was in government and I'm a politician, I would message that. That would be part of my propaganda, because I have to sell my message. I have not examined that statement to see whether or not government is correct, because government has a right to want to say that. If they believe that they've made enough inroads, that they've attempted to fix where there's no pensions, that workers who are not covered by 1958 can have a pension. There are questions about it, but that has been done. If they're working on regularization, some of it through regularization, some of it after reform, if that is being done, and you're creating the enabling environment, government can make those claims. Well, let me tell you about the experience of my union. We have a situation where, and I'm wearing red tonight, our workers at the GNTA, the CBA, the collective bargaining agreement for the period 2023 to 25 is unsigned. They took protest action on Wednesday. There is no clamor and frenzy for the CBA to be signed. Meanwhile, there is a clamor and frenzy for a CBA that's not yet finished to be signed. So how can we claim that the industrial landscape is 100% correct when that is not the reality?
So it's not
Look
reality.
at the Thompson
Would you
situation.
have a message for, and I want to go because we run out of time, we talk about what is the theme for
let me get that back for you
for
again.
the more, and while you're looking at that, I mean, tomorrow Workers' March.
Friday.
Right,
yes.
Friday, yeah, right, okay, Friday.
So we march under the theme, stronger together, defending workers' rights, securing our future.
So what's your message, not just to the government, but to the workers, but to the average worker who feels tired, stretched, and uncertain about the future? What are you saying to them?
Look.
What are you saying to them?
Tomorrow belongs to no man. The future is uncertain for all of us. So our hope in this country comes from God. That's where hope springs eternal. But do we have a right to be hopeful? Yes. Do we feel tired? Yes. I believe that a lot of us, we're still having after COVID effects. So we need to support each other. We need to look after our health. Government provides a health care plan in partnership with workers. A lot of workers are still not taking advantage of that. Government pays as a benefit 55% for the members of the PW for our medical plan. A lot of workers still say, I can't afford it. When you have to pay 45%, but when you're sick, you have no choice but to afford it. So I'm saying to workers, take advantage of the benefits that the union has put on the table for you together with government.
And my final thing, because we're running out of time, Daisy, what time the boat leaves tomorrow? Someone was asking.
The boat leaves on Friday.
On
Tomorrow is
Friday,
Thursday.
tomorrow.
The boat
It
leaves
sounds like tomorrow. On Friday morning, 7 a.m.
We are departing at
And-
7 a.m.
And Daisy, I'm not going back there, but the election is clearly all indicators. In fact, I understand that the government, the NDC, has a mega, that's the word they use, rally, massive rally next month. I think it's at 20-something of June. Some people speculate it might be an election announcement. But where's the union? I mean, the union clearly went a direction in your last election. Is the union likely to go in the direction this election, or are you just going to leave it laissez-faire to your workers to do their own thing, or what's the direction you see?
I will tell you something, Mr. Campbell.
Yeah.
My members, to a large extent, have signaled where their fears are, where their concerns are, and what they feel about the upcoming election. I want to say that the Grenada Public Workers Union is the largest union in this country. I want to say that the Grenada Public Workers Union is perhaps the strongest union in this country. We are celebrating 95 years this year. Do not take my union lightly. Do not take the members of the Public Workers Union for granted. Do not take us lightly. As for me, my role is not to influence necessarily any sort of a partisan election. Unions do that where there is a crusade, where there is a cause. The pension and gratuity matter was a crusade.
You don't have any crusade or cause this year.
We have causes.
Yeah.
We have concerns.
Right.
I don't know.
It's not strong
But
enough to
I
take
am
a
not
direction.
saying that to you. I'm saying to you, my union,
Yeah.
we have the largest volume. We represent the largest volume.
I know
of
that.
workers.
You're repeating
and
yourself.
every day
You said
they
that
are
before.
signaling.
Right.
Their letters pouring.
Right.
Their concerns pouring.
But what kind of direction you see, and where do you see the?
I'm seeing that Grenada will choose and will decide for Grenada the
Right.
government that Grenada wants at this time. And remember, a people always get the government that they deserve because they choose the government.
Your closing comment, Daisy.
Well, I just want to say that we live in beautiful Grenada. We live in peaceful Grenada. We are going over to Carriacou. Carriacou, we know you are ready for us. We are coming. We look forward to a wonderful May Day. May Day will be May Day. May Day will have all the fun, all the hard comments, and all of the pecan. But as a union, our role is to help to create that enabling environment for sustainable development of our country, regardless of which political administration is in office. I encourage my members every day. We encourage our members. Give to Caesar what is due to Caesar. When you go to work, give a good day. Give a productive day. Be professional on the job, because that is how you can support your families. So even when you're not satisfied, even when you feel your salaries are low, if you have to do without it, you have no livelihood, you have no life. And so we all have to build Grenada together. We know that we are confronting a challenging time in our world and in our region. Let us band together. Let us unite together as a Grenadian people. The divisive politics that we are seeing, it's too much. It's outrageous. We cannot go forward as a people where every single determination, every single conversation that we have, if we look at this item and it's white, based on where we sit on the color divide, we say something else about it. We can't go ahead as a people like that. Even where we love our government and you love your party and you support your party, we have to be constructive in our criticism, in our analysis, in our reasoning. That is how we are going to go forward as a people. If we don't do that, we are doomed.
Thank you very much, Daisy. It's a pleasure having you on MTV Community Forum. Viewers, that's all the time we have. We want to thank the management and staff, but of course, our technical staff in particular for the work they're doing. So we thank you very much. We'll see you next week, same time, same place. Bye-bye.